Hi, so I'm Richard Howey from Newcastle University, and I'm a research software engineer. And recently I worked on a commercial project. But how does working on a commercial project compare to working on a research project based within the university? And in this talk, I'll be going through the example of working on the commercial projects, and then hopefully we'll learn some lessons about how this differs from a research project within the university. So to tell the story of this commercial project, this was with a company, and for the purposes of confidentiality, I'll refer to this company as Company X. And Company X had some mathematical models that they wanted to simulate some results from, but they didn't have anyone at the company that could write the code to do this. So naturally, they turned to AI to write some AI code to try and do this, and naturally it didn't work. But it wasn't too bad. So they approached Newcastle University in the maths department. So they approached the maths department at Newcastle University to see if anyone could try and fix these models. And a professor there said, yeah, they could do it. And for the sake of confidentiality, I refer to this professor as Professor X. And Professor X realized that this wasn't just a mathematical problem, it was also a computational problem and a software problem. So they got involved an RSE to help with the project. A research software engineer, that is, of course. And so they just wanted this code and the mathematical models finished and fixed. So they said, here you go, here's the code, can you fix it? And they also said they wanted one of the models fixed before the end of the year, and this was around December. But we work at the university, so this means before the Christmas break, because the whole university shut down over Christmas break. And they gave us the code initially to get a head start, because at this point, the project wasn't officially started, because when you work with a commercial company, you need to sign all the contracts and so on. So it wasn't actually officially started at this point. So initially, you need to sort out this contract called the Master Service Agreement. So the legal department at Company X created this document, and then this was sent to the legal team at Newcastle University. And as well as this contract, there was another contract that was needed, the Statement of Work, or the SOW for short. And this contains all the details of what we were going to do on the project. So this also needed to be sorted out. So they sent that across to Newcastle University. And the legal team at Newcastle University said, great, thanks for the contracts, but we want to make some changes. So they sent them back again. And some time passes, and then it's the Christmas break before we know it. And we haven't finished one of these models that they wanted. However, the people at Company X said, that's no longer a problem. We don't actually want this model finished by the end of the year. Whoever decided at Company X that they wanted this initial bit of work done, they've changed their mind for whatever reason. We don't know why, but they didn't want it anymore, so that was fine by us. And the project wasn't officially started then anyway. So come next year, and then the contracts are sent back again from Company X to Newcastle University with some more changes. And at this point, Company X want us in particular to look at the statement of work. They want a very detailed piece of description of what exactly we're going to do in this document. And they want some extra things in there. And to do this, we practically have to do half of the work already just to answer these questions of what exactly we're going to do and how long it's going to take. But this isn't too much of a problem because Professor X has already been working on the project over the Christmas break, because given a nice, juicy mathematical problem, They can't help themselves but to look at it, even during the holidays, so they're already looking at that. Yeah, so then we send the contracts back with some more changes, of course. And then some time passes, clearly illustrated by that tumbleweed. And then we ask what's going on, because the projects are just sitting, sorry, not the projects, the contracts are just sitting there with Company X. So the RSE at this point is getting worried. They've already spent quite a bit of time working on the project, and so they're worried the project might not actually officially go ahead. Maybe something's happened at Company X. Maybe they don't want to do this anymore, or maybe the people higher up at Company X, they're not going to fund this anymore. Who knows what's happening? So we halt work on this for the time being. However, and then eventually they do send back on the contracts, which gets sent straight back again with some changes from Newcastle University, and then the contracts get sent back again. And then finally they get signed by Newcastle University, and then they're signed by Company X. So this is 2 months later, finally the project can officially start. So when the project starts, we get half of the money, and the other half will come after the project is officially finished. And so once the project finally starts, it doesn't take too much longer to finish the project. So then we hand back the fixed code, and also a technical report and a user guide of how to use the updated software. So, sorry, the project is finished. And then again, lots of time passes and we don't hear back from Company X. So maybe that's a good thing that they haven't said anything. However, the legal people at Newcastle University, they want this other bag of cash. So they want the project signed off. So then more time passes after they said they were a bit busy and they're going to get back to us. But eventually they do get back to us and they say, hang on, how does this code work? Can you tell us how to use it? Can we have a meeting about the code? So we say, yeah, no problem, we can do that. But in the meantime, before the meeting, have a look at the user guide. So by the time of the meeting, everything's fine and we can use the code because they've read the user guide by then. And then some more time passes. And then 3 months later, after the project is finished, they say, oh, can you create this layman's document for us? So that's a document that absolutely anybody can read, even if they don't have any technical expertise or anything. However, it's got to have all of the technical things in that the technical report has. So it's got to say absolutely everything, but it has to be written in such a way that anyone can understand it, and it's got to be of journal quality. The kind of document might take months to write, and we said, no, we're not going to do that, but as a compromise, we'll do a very rough draft, and then you can finish it off. And they say, oh, okay then. And then during this time, we bill them for the last bit of money and they give it to us. And then the project kind of fizzles out. And we agree to check the document for them once they've written it. So what pros and cons can we get from this example? Well, firstly, there's more money, obviously. And con, contracts, exclamation mark. Pros, you get to see the work directly being used in the workplace. Cons is shifting priorities due to the politics. We don't necessarily know what's going on as an RSE, but we have to deal with the consequences. And there may be tools or data sets that are provided that you wouldn't get in research. Another con is there's a clash between the paid by hour RSE approach and the contract completion approach. So as RSEs, you normally get paid per hour, but if you're doing a contract, you're basically working to the contract. rather than hours. And did I mention there's more money? And there's also cultural differences, which feeds into all the other things there. So try and wrap it up with some conclusions. So commercial collaborations offer opportunities, but they may require navigating company cultures, and success may depend on well-written contracts. I was hoping to have some golden nugget of information in this kind of conclusions and how you should deal with commercial projects, but unfortunately I don't have any, so you've come to the wrong talk for that. But finally, should RSE do commercial projects? Because if that was the only thing we did, would just be contractors, but everything in moderation. So you probably all got your own experiences and opinions on this kind of subject. So any questions or comments are welcome. Thanks.
The first question we have on Slido, that layman's document that came sort of by the sign of it by surprise at the end.
Yeah.
Was that in the original statement of work?
According to them, it was months later because at that point they needed one, but a few months before they weren't bothered because nobody'd asked them for such a document. So to summarize, it's probably a grey area, but I would err on the side that no, it wasn't. But from their perspective, months down the line when they needed it, it was. But if they had mentioned that earlier on, then it wouldn't be such a problem. We could have worked on it more together earlier on.
Thank you. From your experience of this, how different are this sort of commercial sort of documentation process compared to the more normal grant proposals that we deal with in research?
Yeah, well, it's for a different audience, really. So it's yeah, it's very different. So just talk about this one example. The brief answer would be very different. But maybe talk to me later if you want a better explanation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discussions after that can happen here. It sounds like this next question comes from someone with experience in a similar context, perhaps, and learnings from that. To what degree did the statement of work include sort of specifics about the project deliverables? You said already that sort of layman's draft both was and wasn't in there, depending on perspective.
Well, documents was in the statement of work, and we did give them documents, and they were happy with that initially, but then later they weren't because they decided they want a different kind of document. So I guess the brief answer is yes, it did include that, and we did deliver that, but then again, it's a grey area of what kind of documentation.
And I'll take this next question and sort of modify it a little bit with something I was wondering about as well. How do these kinds of collaborations get started? Do they rely on personal contacts? Are they things that sort of build momentum over time? Now you've done one, are you potentially looking for others, and do you expect that?
Well, in this case, it came through the maths department at Newcastle University, so they've already got a consultancy branch there, and they've been doing that for decades. So it was basically just an offshoot of that they needed an RSE on one of their projects. And whether we as an RSE group look for that in the future, that's still an open question.
Excellent. Thank you very much.